Okay, Charlie.
Hello.
Hey, this is Dean and Charlie. We're on the Crypto the WonderDog show. Today we haven't been on in a few days. Today is Tuesday, the 30th of January. And Charlie, you and I have been talking off the air, obviously, about a lot of the crypto stuff, and we've both been learning a lot since we were introduced to this. So, um, tell me how your week has been with what's been going on with you.
Well, ever since you and I first started talking about cryptocurrencies, I'd say about oh gosh, about 3 months ago, give or take, I it spurred a renewed interest in the economy, what a currency is, basic macroeconomics, the things that I pretty much had. I'm not going to say I put on the shelf, but hadn't been since I had been to give people some kind of a background. I used to be a journalist for KPFK and other periodicals, Inland Empire Business Journal, and so I used to follow pretty religiously because my beat was economics and finance. And after I left that industry, I tended not to pay as much attention as I had in the past because I just wasn't getting paid to pay that much attention. Um, but after I started talking to you again, actually longer than just 3 months ago, it began to renew an interest in understanding basic financial and economic um, ideas and concepts. And so, since you and I talked, we began talking about cryptocurrencies and how does the value come? Where do they even derive a value? It's spurred a very renewed interest, a highly renewed interest in currencies, just the idea of a currency, the dollar, the value of dollar, the value of the euro, and what's happening generally in the economy. And so that's what I've pretty much been doing, is been trying to get as big or as good a handle on all of this, especially at a macroeconomic level, than I had before. And I have you to thank for that because it, because it has renewed an interest. Because quite honestly, I'd heard of cryptocurrencies. Actually, I'd heard of Bitcoin, and that's all I've heard because it was everywhere. At least you couldn't, even if you weren't looking for it, it found
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't care. I honestly did not care. You know, I had enough to worry about just looking at what I thought were real currencies or more traditional currencies in the economy.
Yeah.
But boy, things have really changed. I'm just looking at how much Bitcoin has been volatile, how the incredible volatility of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's
And
caused a lot of people to be very rich. Some people they caught in came in a little too late, and now they've lost half their wealth because they saw the $20,000 Bitcoin, bought it right then when all the excitement was happening, and they thought it was just going to keep moving up. And as far as a lot of the supported, uh, I guess the people in the industry, they some of the bigger names they're saying, oh, it's just going to keep going. Just hold on. It's just doing a correction right now. It's going to keep moving up. So don't let go of it. It's going to keep moving up. And yeah, I think it could keep going. I'm not a financial expert by any means, and I don't pretend to be. And I'm not trying to give anyone advice on this. But I'm trying to do is introduce some of the things that I'm finding to some of the people that may be coming in after me that are looking for information kind of the way I did and the way that you are too, and finding ways that we can help people out, give them some of the news that we're getting. Don't take our advice for anything, but just go out and look for yourself, do your own research. We'll give you some of the news that we find.
well, the thing I'm glad you brought this up because quite honestly, we're you and I, but especially me, I'm on a journey to try and. I don't want to sound too kung fu esque, but I'm actually trying to figure out what's going on here. As I said, we're both trying to figure things out, and by asking each other questions and trying to find the answers, because obviously we don't know them, and then trying later on to grow this channel to the point that we can bring in people who know far more than we do and ask them questions, it'll help us try to understand what's going on with Bitcoin. So the
Yeah.
reason, or with cryptocurrencies, not Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies.
Yes. Yes.
And so the reason, just to let the public know, or whoever's bothering to listen to us, the reason we started this channel was primarily because you and I finally realized, well, we don't know that much.
No.
I mean,
Nope.
we think we do, but what we understand basically is that a cryptocurrency is premised on a mathematical algorithm or a mathematical formula. Well, unless you really have a PhD in mathematics or quite a deep understanding of math, you're not going to understand the basis for the value of these currencies. So again, we're trying to figure it out, and we're trying to figure out how these currencies connect to the bigger economy. Because I think you and I have come to the conclusion, a currency is only as good as the economy that it represents or that it's tethered to. And that's what we're trying to figure out as well with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go into one of the things that we found over the past week. This came in from Crypto Compare. This is one of the news articles that I subscribe to, and they send stuff every couple of days. So one of the things that I found, this was on January 26th, market analysts report, MVIS Crypto Compare Index. The MVIS Crypto Compare Digital Assets 10 Index has closed at 9,727 with a loss of 0.8% for the day. And that was on January 28th, or 26th. When I scroll down here, there was an article here on Venezuela. And to show you how much I know about Venezuela is like I had to ask you how to spell it.
Well, the funny thing is that I have a sister-in-law that's Venezuelan, and I began to realize that I needed to learn how to spell Venezuela because some of the most beautiful women in the world are from Venezuela.
Is she hot?
So oh my gosh, she's beautiful. But Venezuela is where most of I don't know how far afield we want to go here, but it was really important after I saw her to realize I needed to know how to spell this country's name. So that's why I became pretty good at that. But you know what's important about Venezuela? And you're saying that Venezuela, I'm sorry, can you finish the thought? I think you said that Venezuela, finish the thought about how Venezuela is connected to cryptocurrency.
Okay, so, market analyst report here, January 26th. One of the first articles here was Petro, Venezuela to accept hard currencies and cryptocurrencies. Venezuela is going to issue its Petro cryptocurrency through a token sale out of the 100 million Petros that Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro ordered. About 38 million will go to institutional investors. And a month-long pre-sale set to begin on February 15th. So that's coming up in about 15 days. Only institutional investors will participate in the pre-sale and will reportedly be able to buy the cryptocurrency at its discount of up to 60%. So some of the things that whenever you see an ICO about a coin, what problem does it solve? So Petro, gasoline is still one of the biggest needs that especially here in California that people have. Even if you don't have a car, your Uber driver or your Lyft driver needs Petro. So what do you think it's going to do? The Petro cryptocurrency.
Well, what's striking to me about this is, of course, Venezuela is one of the major suppliers of fuel and petroleum to the United States. People don't know this, or I'm not saying people don't know this. I got to back up. A lot of people may not be aware of this, but Citgo, which is a major gas station station, that's primarily owned by Venezuela. So you're having a country that has a major stake in an American refiner and distributor of gasoline and gas products and lubricants, petroleum products, is saying, we believe in cryptocurrency to the point that we're going to be willing to accept it, or at least begin to trade in it. And the thing that's interesting is you were talking about a few minutes ago how volatile and the cryptocurrencies have been. I mean, today I watched the Bitcoin futures fall something like close to 11% today. It fell below 10,000. So that would lend me to believe, and that, you know, somebody out there in the ether can tell me if I'm wrong, but it would lend me to believe that this is a really speculative. If it's a futures market, it tends to be speculative and just an investment that, or a thing that you're putting in because you're hoping just to make a buck on it and go away. But if a nation like Venezuela, which owns a major stake in an American refiner and distributor of petroleum, is telling you, no, we actually think that there's something to this technology, that we're willing to accept it in trade for petroleum, there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, something is caught. There has to be something of tangible value, or a real currency is a way of. If you take a look at the definition of a currency, it's a way of exchange. It's a medium of exchange, but it has to be stable and it has to be predictable. You know, and so somehow Venezuela has come to the decision. This American company that has Venezuela as their major shareholder, saying, we think that there's something here with this currency or with this technology.
Okay.
To me, that's significant.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, is this something you see that people are going to be able to pay at the pump?
I don't know. I mean, to me, that's the thing I have to discover more. I really would like to know why Venezuela decided that the cryptocurrency was legitimate. It was a legitimate way of getting paid, and how they intend or how they see this is going to develop. I'm not an expert on that in any means. It's just a question that I have. Like one of the major questions that you and I would bring up and ask an expert whenever we have one come on and discuss things. But to me, that's significant. It would seem to me, as just a layman, that if a nation is willing to take this kind of currency or this kind of technology for payment,
yeah,
there's got to be something there. What is it? You know.
Well, do you see anything coming out of the Middle East from this? Do you see anything? You know, are there any?
Well, yeah. I mean, Venezuela is probably one of the major. I'm not sure, but I believe that Venezuela sells more or gives more of its. Hold on, let me check. I believe it's the major distributor of or exporter of gasoline or petroleum to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I think most people sell more petroleum to the. I'm going to check to see. You know, I'm going to Google it. I think we're our biggest sales. No.
No.
Yeah, they are one of our major. From what I'm reading, they're one of our major. They're one of our major traders, oil traders. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we in the United States do a lot of business with Venezuela for their oil, more than any other country, including the Middle East, from what I'm understanding.
Okay.
So that's how significant this is. Even if it varies, because a lot of times what they, you know, for instance, Mexico sells us a lot of oil as well, and that can vary year to year.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Venezuela is huge. It is a major exporter of oil to the United States. We import some of that. But we import quite a lot of it.
Amazing. Okay, so well, like I said, how does this affect maybe some of the oil companies from the Middle East? Is this going to be something that they're going to be that Middle East companies have? Do you think any of them have their own currency going yet?
I don't know. That's a great question. I have no idea. And
are any of them taking bitcoins, or any of them are any of them getting paid in bitcoins?
I don't know. Again, I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you, but as I said, all I know is the only thing I've read is that Venezuela is doing that.
Man. Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see what other nations follow that lead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. Let's move on to the next liquid that probably the second most important liquid to Americans right now, Starbucks. Starbucks. Howard Schultz, a trusted digital currency is coming, but it won't be Bitcoin. Wow. What's that mean?
Wow. It means that they're going to be taking cryptocurrencies. They're kind of like Venezuela at a much smaller scale. They're saying something is legitimate about this currency. That there's this technology has to be legitimate enough for them to be willing to trade with it.
This is Schultz sees potential in blockchain, the online ledger technology underlying digital currencies. The company has no specific project or investment in blockchain, Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson says. So that's from him saying that they don't have any investment in blockchain technology yet, but they see it important. This is another big company, Starbucks, that's got their eyeball on the blockchain technology.
Well, what does that what does that tell you? That it's beginning to sound like as if, at least with these two companies, that there's an actual potential for a competitor to the U.S. dollar, and that could be this new technology, which I find remarkable. The U.S. dollar, you and I have grown up for years with being told that the American economy is probably the strongest economy in the world. It's the standard of living that everyone aspires to attain or maintain. People from all over the world come here because they feel that they're going to make a better living than they would where they're at. And the one symbol of that, it's not the flag or the stock market, it's the U.S. dollar, the value of the U.S. dollar. The way I was taught when I was growing up, when I was going to business school and afterwards, the dollar was kind of the stock. If you think of the United States as a corporation, the common stock of that corporation is the U.S. dollar. And its value, whenever you take a look at the value of the dollar, you're comparing it's an index comparison to other currencies. So in many cases, the value of the dollar depends on how poorly other countries or their currencies are doing. So if you have a rising dollar value, it may be that other nations, their economies are really bad. And what struck me, though, is when I did an analysis, a search for the last 40 years of the U.S. dollar, it's been all over the place.
Really?
I was surprised, and I would suggest anybody to take a look at a chart looking at how the dollar has really been very, very volatile, especially during the 1980s. It hit a peak of almost 160, and then it came crashing down to about 90 within a period of a few years. Yeah. So that tells you the instability that's taking place within economies all over the world, and that's been happening just within the last 10 years as well. About in 2014, it hit a peak of 104. It's currently finishing the day at 89.
Wow.
So that's a significant drop in the value of the dollar. Now, let's ask some questions. I've always said that, and we've debated this time and again, we can't talk about cryptocurrencies or anything just in isolation. There has to be a context. There has to be a larger, overarching context to whenever we speak about anything, whether it be the stock market, cryptocurrencies, or the dollar. The dollar, if it's falling like this, if it's this volatile, it's telling you that somehow other nations may not feel very comfortable or are completely sold on what we're doing here in this country, whether it be our monetary or fiscal policy, how we manage money or how we manage taxes, or, our stimulus policies. If you see this kind of variation in the dollar, I think it's beginning to tell you that maybe we don't feel as strongly about these things as you do. Maybe we see that there might be an alternative to something else. Because to me, a stable, strong, viable economy doesn't have these massive valuations of this kind of volatility in its most important facet, its currency.
right.
So I think that's what it's telling me is that maybe people are seeing the same thing I'm seeing and saying, wait a minute, maybe these cryptocurrencies, even though they're very volatile, they may be a legitimate way of or another way of being able to have transactions and being able to conduct economic activity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what it's beginning to tell me. At least that's what I'm coming to a conclusion. At least with Venezuela and pardon me, Venezuela and both Starbucks saying, yeah, there's something here that we can use and we can work with.
I think so, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more companies like this that are coming on that we wouldn't normally see talking about cryptocurrencies that we haven't heard talk about cryptocurrencies. They're going to start coming out and in the news in the near future. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing all over the board.
Yeah, and again, my biggest focus, because I had such a background in economic and finance when I was a journalist, is talking about the general economy. And you, excuse me, you and I often talk about things like Hollywood because you have had a background in production, television, picture, film production.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just reading the other day that I think the ticket sales for the theater ticket sales were some of the worst, I think, in the last 20 or 30 years. They've just been falling through the floor.
Yeah. I mean, who can afford, I just went to the movie the other night. It was almost $50 for two people, and that was just to get in because it was an IMAX movie. And it wasn't really even that it wasn't that great of an experience where we should have, forked out $50 to watch a stupid movie. That won't happen again.
What's the quintessential American date? Dinner and a movie, right?
Yeah, dinner and movie.
Okay, now you live in Orange County. So how much, let's say, for instance, the average price of a ticket has gone up to almost $9. Like $8.
Oh, no, is it $9? That's a matinee for a kid. My God, I mean, it's $20. 18,
there you go.
18, 15, $18. Like I said, it was almost $50 for us to go see the IMAX movie. So, I mean, it's well over $10 for just a regular seat in a regular theater.
That's for places like big cities like Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco. I mean, that's what the average price in the country is, about $9. But when you take a look at places like where you live, Orange County,
it's ridiculous.
Much higher. Okay, so let's tally this up. Okay, if you're going to an average, if you're going to be doing the prototypical American date, dinner and a movie, you're going to talk for first run movie, a good venue, between $15 and $20 to get through the door. So, okay, let's call it $17.50. So for two of you, that's about $35.
Yeah. Yep.
What are your concessions going to be? How much are your concessions?
Oh my God, a bucket of popcorn. $10. That's for a small, and then you get the medium, which is $10.25. And then you get the large for $10.50. So, and that's, you're going to need a forklift to take that back to your seat.
Okay. So between concessions.
Oh, I mean, you're not going to walk away from the concession stand under $20 for one person. It's almost worth it to go down and have yourself a nice big steak before you show up at the movie theater, because for what you're going to pay for a steak outside the restaurant, you're going to pay the same for a Coke and a freaking bucket of popcorn.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, you did go to a dinner, at a decent restaurant.
Yeah, there's another $50 to $75. If you're going to have a drink or two, you're $12 to $15 for a drink, unless you're having a beer. It's like $6, $7. So you're gonna have a mixed cocktail. Yeah, at least $50, $60.
Okay, so there you go. So the prototypical American date, dinner and a movie, is going to cost you $100.
$100 for two people to go watch a movie and have a bite to eat.
There you go. So how many Americans can actually afford to be able to go?
5%.
5%. Now, the reason I bring this all up is that people understand that their wages ain't keeping up with the cost of living.
Not at all.
Not a bit. they realize that their investments, the 401ks, their pensions, whatever else is out there that they can probably put their money in, is not keeping up with the cost of living as well. The reason I bring all of this up is that you can't escape the real world. There's got to be a reason why people are jumping into cryptos and cryptocurrencies as much as they have. And this is the reality that they're seeing. The $100, you know what? When I was in college back in the 80s, I could budget for an entire month. My budget for dinner and a movie was $100. That meant I could go several times in a month for $100 and have a dinner and a movie. About 30 years ago.
For the month was $100.
For the month, because I was a college student. But I worked and I had some money, so I would apportion a certain amount of the money I made for dinner and movies, because that was kind of what we were going to do. And $100 was what I needed for the entire month. You're telling me 30, 40 years later, I need to have $100 just to go see one or to participate in one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you got the kind of girls that like to eat, the ones that don't eat just the salad, oh man.
Well, that's why I got married, because I got
max out that credit card.
Well, yeah, that's it. But the reason I got married is because I got tired of whining and dining women.
Oh my God!
It's a lot cheaper just to get married.
Oh.
But
ramen and Netflix. Top ramen and Netflix, baby.
Well, that's what you have.
Yes.
But the thing, you brought up the point. It's your credit card, and credit card debt has now begun or is beginning to escalate again. It's just accelerating because people simply do not have the money, the wherewithal, to go do the things that 30, 40 years ago they could do with their cash.
Yep.
With just a paycheck. So again, I keep saying that's the real economy. That's the thing we have to look at, aside from or along with just talking about what the cryptocurrencies or what any particular currency or crypto coin is going to do.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all psychological. I mean, why we invest and why we do is primarily motivated by how we feel. And insecurity is driving a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were talking about the Bitcoin was, it's fluctuating. If you go to today's, and this is, we're talking live right now. It's California here. It's almost 2:00. You look at Bitcoin over the day. In the 1 day chart here, right now it's at $10,261.50, which sounds like a lot of money, and it really is. I mean, that's ridiculous compared to what it was. But I mean, people are freaking out because at noon it was 11,000, so it's lost $800. That's it's insane. And then let's go to the 3 months. 3 months. There, look at that. There it is. At its all-time high right there, 19 something. And it fell down and came back up. Fell down, came back up. Fell down and down and down and down and down. So where are we going to see the floor on this thing? Where is it going to hit? When's it going to stop going down?
I would never be able to prognosticate that, and I'm not even going to pretend that I can. Because quite frankly, I don't understand, and I'm not sure anybody else has been able to tell you definitively how this market really works.
No, and if you look at so I'm sitting here on the coin market cap. Let me get it back up here where people can see it. Wow, this is a new program for me. I'm trying to work with here. So I want to show everyone if you're looking at the cryptocurrencies and you look over here on the right hand side, it shows the graph for the last in the last 7 days. I guess this is 7 days. I don't know. Anyway, so they look identical. You can see the drops. The drops are all in the same spot. The spikes are all in the same spot. And if you look at if you go to the index, the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or whatever, it's completely different. Everything's all over the board. But if you look here at these coins, they look identical. You just almost lay them over each other, and you could see almost a very, very definitive pattern. What causes that? And we're
You know,
looking
again,
at the market cap. Let's look at the market cap here. $172 billion. Ethereum,
yeah,
$105 billion. Ripple, $45 billion. But yet it's these. Looking at the price of Ripple here, $1.17. Um, this is something that I jumped in on at 75 cents, jumped out at $3, came back in at $1.45, and now I'm down to $1.17. So I'm wondering where's the floor on this poor baby gonna hit? Bitcoin
yeah,
Cash, $25 billion. Even though it's less than Ripple, the price of it is $1,487.
yeah.
So I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. I'm like everyone else, I guess, in my shoes. I'm really new to this and trying to figure the whole thing out, wondering where I can make some money, because I know that it's such an it's still so young that I think that there's still
Yeah.
a lot of ways to make money on this. And the videos that I watch, most of them, they're all saying, don't worry, don't worry at all. It's all going to come back up. And then there's a few people out there that are, screaming, the sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Yeah, and you're asking me what the price is going to be, but the thing is, it's purely speculation at this point. And I think when you have a futures market, because what I'm looking at is investing.com. I enjoy it. I don't recommend it. I'm not saying that this is the definitive charting or the definitive site that anybody should go to. I just go to it because I like how simple and straightforward its presentation is. But I'm taking a look at Bitcoin futures, and it's down 10% for the day, or at least up to the night. Whenever you have a futures market attached to everything or anything, whether it be any commodity or the dollar, whatever it may be, that's a mechanism for speculation. There's nothing wrong with speculation. There's nothing wrong with hedging anything. But my point is that, it alters the supply and demand curve. Because when you have a futures, you're basically putting a bet that something is going to happen, that it's going to hit a certain value at a specific time in the future. Well, that's a bet. That's not necessarily saying, okay, I have a certain amount of a product. Will you sell it to me? That's a spot market. Spot market basically tells you it's more of a buy and supply. It more adheres to the supply and demand mechanism. The futures market tends to alter that. And a lot of times people do that just to basically hedge their bets or hedge their, farmers will do this a lot. When they have a crop, they'll place a hedge against that to make sure that if the crop doesn't come in, at least this investment will. But that tells me that it's not. Should a currency be doing that? Should a currency actually be involved in that kind of speculation? That's my question. I don't know. Should everything just be a bet? I mean, to me, that's the question I've always had.
Yeah.
It's always bothered me that once you do that, you're basically saying that this is more of a casino rather than an economy.
Casino.
It is.
You're playing craps right now, aren't you?
You're playing craps. But then again, I read how Starbucks and Venezuela are now beginning to say cryptocurrencies have some legitimacy. There's something here fundamentally strong or solid that we're going to trade in it. So at this point, I'm confused. I'll be honest with you, to whoever's listening, I'm confused. I don't know where it's going. I have all these questions, and they're not being resolved. They're not being answered. Because I think nobody's asking the real fundamental question. What is the wealth? What is the basis of the value of these currencies? Somebody's going to have to come in and be definitive and explain and say, this is how you determine the wealth of any currency, the value of any cryptocurrency. And until that happens, I'm just as lost as you are.
Yeah, we need to have more people on, and I think that if we can get the word out to a few more people, we should get some of these guys that are working for these companies. I'd love to have them on and come in and explain their side of this story of why it's, why we see the peaks in the same spot on cryptocurrencies, and why we see the valleys in the same spots on all these, and how that we can predict some of the futures of what's going on. Obviously, if we could, we'd all be rich, but that's what I want to know.
But again, the thing is that you and I come from more of a fundamental analysis. We come more in terms of, well, how is the economy overall doing? I mean, we can't look at just any cryptocurrency as value without looking at the bigger picture, at the reasons why these things are occurring.
Uh-huh.
And that's where we come in, and that's where we need to, because much of what we're seeing is technical analysis, okay, which is charting. You take a look at a chart, you put some lines here and there, and you say, okay, here's an inflection point, and from that you're supposed to be able to divine what the future is going to be. And some people swear by it. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I don't quite understand it. I mean, I understand what they're doing in general, but I'm not sure that's the definitive way of being able to determine the value of this thing. You have to have fundamental analysis. You have to look at the overall general economy and say, I'm sorry, we've heard some remarkable things, some incredible things about where the value of this cryptocurrency is going to go. $100,000, some cases $1 million. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, and I hear this or I read this and I say, there is no way that I can see, in my opinion, that this can possibly happen, because there's nothing in that. I can't see the economy, the U.S. economy, as its current configuration, in any way generating that kind of wealth for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see it. But again, if somebody can come along and tell me how that's possible, well, okay, I'll be willing to listen, but I'm going to ask questions. And I hope we have a big enough audience that's going to be asking those questions as well.
Yeah. Yep. I think so, but that's like I said. I'd love to get some of these guys from these companies on. I'd love to talk to them and let them talk to us. So anyways, enough with the boring stuff. Charlie, last night I was watching a movie. It was about the founders of National Lampoon magazine. Futile and ridiculous and futile effort, or something like that. But it was about Doug Kenny and Henry Beard. Robert Hoffman, Doug Kenny and Henry Beard, who started National Lampoon magazine. It was a great documentary movie. It was a comedy, well, of course, with a tragic ending if you don't know what happened. But National Lampoon started as a magazine in 1970 from Harvard University. Pretty funny thing, and then some spin-offs of movies came out of that. And then I found out that what was it? Animal House was filmed in Eugene, Oregon. Now, how did?
Yep. I lived it. That's where I live.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about it is that if I was pretty young when that came out. I didn't really care. As I got older, I would go to revival theaters, and that's when I first saw it. I think I saw it like about 10 years after it first came out. And I realized that, it was shot at the University of Oregon. And I came to understand that when I moved here to Eugene. And, but it was that movie where I kind of fell in love with Karen Allen. That was one of my first big crushes. Karen Allen, yeah. Because, boy, she was a cutie. I mean, I don't want to sound like a lecherous guy, but yeah. Obviously, you have these crushes and all that. I'm not going to stalk the woman, but I remember so well that movie years and years later. And the funny thing about going back to the National Lampoon, who was one of the editors or one of the writers actually was Conan O'Brien.
Really?
He got his comedic start at the National Lampoon.
Oh wow!
And he attended Harvard, and that's, I guess, where he spent most of his time and getting his riffs was at, working for that magazine.
Well, I saw that last, when I was watching the show last night, that that's where, the hell's the guy's name from Saturday Night Live, the producer of Saturday Night Live?
Lauren Michaels?
Yeah, where he got all of the cast for the first Saturday Night Live was he stole them from National Lampoon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, all the actors that were on Saturday Night Live, they were all part of National Lampoon's magazine and their broadcast show. They had a radio show, they had a live show, the Lemmings. It was really fascinating to see that all these people that came out of it, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, they were all right there in the beginning. They were some of the the writers and everything from that show.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. I didn't know that. It's funny. If we have to start talking about movies, how bad are movies currently? And we have to bring up and reference things from about 40 years ago. You and I always get into this, and I have another friend of mine too. Now that we're digressing away from cryptocurrency, about just the state of Hollywood, the current state of where movies are at. And since it's such an important part of our cultural landscape, we can't escape the fact that for many of us, we simply stopped going to movies, or have stopped going to movies maybe years ago or just recently. But fewer people are now attending. And Hollywood is as a business, is in huge trouble. And again, it goes back to the fact that they pretty much created a business model that's not sustainable. If you keep raising prices when people keep leaving, it's not a good idea. It's not something that's sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what's happening with ESPN. ESPN keeps raising prices on its cable package, and people are leaving. Are just not watching it. They're just dumping their cable. Well, they're just dumping cable along with ESPN. And so the idea was with ESPN is they're going to keep raising their prices. I mean, I think in your cable package, ESPN is that channel is the most expensive of them all.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, you should watch it, or you should take a look at your bill if you get that package.
No, it's just part of my monthly basic cable.
Yeah. Well, take a look at how much you pay, because I think your cable, you have to pay part of your payment. Well, part of your payment has to go for certain things. And I think ESPN is like the most expensive element.
Yeah, ours isn't really broken down like that. It doesn't really show us what we're paying per channel, but I get what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know how sustainable the economy is at this point. I keep seeing so many of these things, and you keep scratching your head and saying, really? It's like universities. I keep watching and the cost of tuition, and I keep thinking it never seems to ever either plateau or go down. It always seems to keep going up. At least here at the University of Oregon, they just announced another increase, and so did the UC. I was thinking, wait a minute. At some point, people cannot afford these things anymore. It's not a sustainable business model to just keep jacking up the tuition and thinking that people are going to take on ever-increasing amounts of loans to go to your university.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, anyway, I think it's time for me to bid farewell.
All right, well, it's been good talking to you, Charlie. I love sitting with you and picking your brain on this stuff, because I'm certainly not as smart as you are, but I like talking to you, and you're obviously going to be kind of my go-to when I need some advice when it comes to what should we be looking at on this stuff. But I'm glad that I was able to introduce you to this, and let's keep our journey going. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please put them in the description below, or put them in the comment section below, and please like and subscribe. We'd like to hear from you and see what you want to hear about. We'd love to talk with you and give you some more information on what we're doing. But anyway, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate you being on the show. And until next time, for Charlie and Dean, this is Crypto the WonderDog. See ya.